Hello, welcome to another session of the Rewiring Your Brain World Summit. My name is Michael Stone. I'm the founder of Neurodynamic Institute and Neurodynamic Breathwork, and I am your co-host for the session. And I'm very happy to be here today with Thaddeus Gamory. How are you, Thaddeus, and welcome.
I'm doing well, Michael. Good to be here.
So I'd like to introduce you to our audience first by reading your bio, and then we'll jump right in. Sound okay?
Sure.
All right. Please. So Thaddeus Gamory is Director of Community Engagement and Projects at Diversity in Aquatics, Inc., a faculty member and law enforcement advisor with the Center for Mind-Body Medicine. He's also the founder of Mind-Body Aquatics and creator of the Blue Mindfulness Training Method, a trauma-informed and culturally competent approach to learning to swim for fearful adults and teens. He earned his BA in Public and Government Administration from the John Jay College of Criminal Justice, where he studied the science of swimming under Dr. Jane Katz. Prior to retiring from the New York City Police Department at the rank of lieutenant, he also completed 3 semesters at the City University of New York School of Law. And when symptoms of Lyme disease made it impossible to complete his law studies, he moved to Florida to heal from Lyme disease and PTSD and start working on his second career. First, he studied holistic health education at Hippocrates Health Institute and began practicing Tai Chi, Qigong, and yoga. And then he became a part-time high school educator, swim and triathlon coach, water safety and aquatics professional, as well as a mindfulness coach and Qigong instructor. So let's get started. Blue mindfulness training sounds very interesting. Can you tell me a little more about that?
Sure. We have a significant number of people who have been impacted by fearful events around water. And when attempting to teach people to swim, and they have some lingering, either conscious or subconscious, impact of their nervous system or memory around fear and produces fear about the water, we employ mindfulness techniques and breathing in order to downregulate the nervous system, allowing for them to be in more relaxed state, engaging us in movement that brings them into a more playful and curious space. And from that space, we then gradually enter the water. And once in the water, we start to show how the breathing and the rhythmic and deep breathing can produce additional calming and relaxation when they're supported in the water. We also let them know that it's understandable that there is some fear because either something happened or there's a perception. It could be a passed down family trait. It could be culturally induced or informed based on the larger culture, where there's not a lot of swimming going on in the African-American community. So there's myths and different things that are passed on. And there was some real incidents and issues around access to water. So that's why the culture and the history is also part of it, so that they can feel that it's okay that there is some fear, that they're not strange or different, and that we also let them know there's something we can do about it. We can actually use our breath and movement and relaxation to better engage in the water in a way where it triggers a relaxation response, which we actually are naturally designed to do. And where the name Blue Mindfulness came from actually is I attended the Blue Mind Summit, and it was started by the author and founder of the Blue Mind, Dr. Wallace J. Nichols. And he wrote a book and he did the research on why do we feel better, more relaxed, calmer around water? What is it about water that causes us to feel an enhanced state? For many people, joy, relaxation, playfulness, whether they're in the water or not. Even people who can't swim, if you ask them to close their eyes and think of a safe, fun, happy place, they may think of a water setting quite often. Yeah.
How was it beneficial to your well-being to seek out an experience like breath, water, movement, and even awe?
Thank you. Great question. So, as I mentioned, or as you read from my bio, and this is something that I recently became more open about, talking about post-traumatic stress disorder, adverse childhood experiences, and the health conditions and that came from Lyme disease, which is a traumatic event by itself. So I was affected neurologically. Memory was affected, speech was affected, my motor skills were affected. I actually had to learn how to walk again to a certain. I was in physical therapy for a year. I had joint pain and other things. So related to rheumatoid arthritis. So there was a time where I had spent learning and relearning and actually learning new skills. And the relaxation exercises that I had learned while I was at Hippocrates. And also, by the way, I want to mention that I was practicing some form of meditation, and I was very athletic while I was in the NYPD. So that was a mitigating factor while I was there and doing that work, being very athletic, swimming, that helped to keep the PTSD at bay or to resolve it if it did arise. But then I had Lyme disease and I didn't know I had Lyme disease. I was undiagnosed for maybe 7 years. And all these symptoms would come up and I would be forgetful and I would be clumsy. Even speech, I had issues with speaking. I became dyslexic. And while I was at Hippocrates Health Institute, most of those symptoms resolved. And then when I began teaching again and working in Florida, when I moved down here, the Hurricane Katrina hit. So now most people would not remember this, but Hurricane Katrina hit South Florida first. And then it moved into the Gulf and then it hit New Orleans. That was the first trigger. So it triggered a response in my body of Lyme disease. So the symptoms came back. The other trigger was PTSD. So the two things happened. And then I didn't even know that the hurricane hit New Orleans because we had no power, no water. We had no communication until I went into my car to charge my cell phone. And I called my brother and he said, "Did you hear what happened?" And I didn't know. And then we got power back on. I went back. I was in grad school as well at the time. That was another dropout moment. And I could not complete grad school. I was working a master's of nonprofit management. And all the symptoms came back and I had to refocus and re-employ some of the skills and things that I learned while at Hippocrates. One, to calm down and be more relaxed, be more in the moment, to start to practice and recapture my ability to speak and to remember and to walk in a way where I wouldn't stumble or trip over myself. So the application of some of these techniques that I had learned I was the living laboratory for it. And then I also started to practice with other people. So I had a doctor of Oriental medicine who practiced Qigong. I took acupuncture and acupressure. I did some what's called the flotation or sensory deprivation tanks, where you're floating in a tank with no sound. And it allowed a reset to occur. I was so eager to get back to life that I said, I'm going to learn new things. I'm going to learn new skills as well. So I started to work on being a better swimmer and being and running again. So I employed a collection of things that allowed me to restore some of my prior abilities. And once I learned those things, I wanted to know more. And I found out more and more about the brain's ability to have neuroplasticity, that certain traumatic events don't have to, they can stay in your tissue, but you can actually have post-traumatic growth. There is a rewiring or resetting of the nervous system based on the science of epigenetics. So, and Yeah, so there was a collection of things. So I sort of trailed off. Did I meet that question? Did
Yeah.
I
Yeah. Thank you.
answer that? Sure.
So with all the work that you've done, what have you noticed in yourself and also with the people that you work with from the perspective of a new, expanded, or transformed social, emotional, or kind of physical way of being?
So yeah. So, while I was working on myself and becoming more engaged and more happy to share what I learned and learning more skills and becoming a swim coach, a Qigong instructor, a triathlon coach, I was a lifeguard. I started to bring that work, the mindfulness and the healing to the water in a way that was benefiting some people who had their own stress and trauma. Veterans. Matter of fact, I was certified by the VA to do the work I was doing in the water using mindfulness and play, actually. And we were actually playing. We created new ways to play in the water, that they would be learning to swim skills that didn't look like learning to swim skills, because a lot of adults have pride. They don't want to look like they're still learning. So we brought new techniques in. And a lot of this I learned under Dr. Jane Katz at John Jay College, where I was studying government and public administration at John Jay, by the way. But I also had a minor in personnel development. So that's where the water came in for me, and the physical fitness came in, because that was definitely something that I employed while I was a lieutenant in the police department to increase morale and performance to stay fit. And we have a need to stay fit. So what I learned while I was in the NYPD of applying this breath work, mindfulness, play, joy, fitness in a group context, I then started to do it here in Florida, because then I went through that process of healing myself. And so the VA certified us as and I had a team, by the way, a team of us. One was a former veteran himself, a combat vet. They certified us as a recreational therapy program, where we brought people into the water. We're on the pool deck. We did all these amazing skills and drills, and we use flotation devices. So it doesn't require you to be a swimmer to do some of these things, even when we're in deep water. So we're in deep water where they're not touching the bottom. And that by itself is like an amazing accomplishment for some people. And they're like, wow, they have a relationship to water, one in which they've never had, or one that is now restored because there was something traumatic that happened. I've had 40, 50, 60, 70-year-olds float on their back for the first time in water, look up at the sun and go, amazed. I've had other people fall asleep while they're floating. And this is assisted floats with flotation, by the way. We're not leaving them out there. And we've had them fall asleep and go, wow, what happened? I didn't know I could be that relaxed. Oh, and become playful and alive again. So I've had non-swimmers become swimmers, to become open water swimmers. And I swam with them for the first time at the beach. Never before. Matter of fact, they had not even been in the beach water past their knees in their entire life. And they were adults, professional adults, even athletes in other forms. I've seen people have a renewed relationship that they not only now became swimmers, they became swim instructors. They became lifeguards. Now, to be a lifeguard, you got to be a strong swimmer, because you have to swim well enough for yourself and for someone else. And it was the rhythmic breathing of swimming, by the way, which we introduced on the pool deck. Deep rhythmic breathing that gave them the belief that, wow, if I can learn how to do that in water, then I can be more relaxed and I can swim longer and farther. And then they learned how to do it in water. And they were like, wow, I really feel more relaxed. I had one student come to me almost in tears. He says, I have all these exams coming up and I'm scared. I don't know what to do. I don't want to get in the water today. I don't know what to do. What should I do, coach? What should I do? And I said, I'm not sure about your life circumstances and your academic needs, and your mom is stressing you out. This is a high school swimmer. This is one particular high school swimmer. I don't know what I I can give you advice about the bigger picture of all those things. But what I can say is, I think if you got in the water right now and we practiced what we practiced before, this long, slow, deep breathing while you're swimming, when you get out, you may have a new perspective on that. You may have a different feeling. You may actually have an insight, or you just may be more relaxed about it. And that's exactly what happened. He got out of the water after, and he didn't want to focus initially, but I said, okay, let's focus, do it rhythmically. You have to count and you have to do it at this rhythm. You have to do it at this rhythm. And he did, and he got out of the water and he was like, what happened? Oh, wow. You know what? This is what I'm going to do. I'm going to tell my mom. And he was so excited, and he thanked me, actually transferred to another school, let me know how he's doing. He's transferred. I had another young lady who her trauma was so significant. It was water related and also adverse and severe, living in a cult, abuse, and it was on the news. So I'm not sharing anything that's too personal. She was part of a federal investigation into a cult, all the abuse, and I mean all the types of abuses that children could experience. Her whole family were in the cults, or her siblings, and she was the first one to get out. So she was significantly traumatized, had PTSD, and tried to learn to swim, tried to be a normal person. And she worked and went on a vacation, and she was so afraid she couldn't get near the water. She went on a cruise. She literally wore a life jacket on a cruise. She had a desire to be in the world in a normal, healthy way and engage with her friends, talented, intelligent, beautiful young lady. But her fear, and this particular fear is how I met her, is about the water. And then she had some traumatic events around the water because she wanted to get along with her friends and do what they're doing and jump in the water, and not a good day. I started working with her. She went from not being able to put her face in the water to swimming 1,000 yards nonstop, to wanting to do her first triathlon, to wanting to be a swim instructor, to bringing her siblings, who had also experienced some trauma, and her mom to the water. And we did an amazing, playful event where we're breathing and moving and having fun. So I witnessed the rewiring and the transformation of relationship to water and also to breath. And it starts with themselves. It's an inside job where the nervous system starts to have an opening, a little space, like, maybe this is possible. A sense of confidence, a sense of possibility, curiosity, even just like, could I, should I? And when we do it in groups, by the way, and most of this training is in a group setting, by the way, this is not individual. When other people see other people make breakthroughs, and we also share, we talk about what's going on, we're present to what the feelings are, and we say all feelings are valid here. It's valid and it's understandable. There's no pressure to do anything faster than you need to be. When we need to step back, we'll step back. And when this particular young lady witnessed other people, and then other people witnessed her, and it was like it built on each other, and they both had amazing breakthroughs. There was another example of somebody having a major breakthrough and just transforming their whole manner of being. There was an 80-year-old who was watching us, 80-year-old woman who's pretty fit and spry, retired educator. And she was like, I'm amazed at how y'all are swimming. Do you think I could do that? And she wasn't afraid of the water. She was afraid of competition. She actually wanted to compete in her first swim meet as an 80 years. And US Masters, by the way, is an organization that does swim meets, and you could be as old, at any age, as long as you can competently get down and back in the pool. And this was a national champion swim meet. But what the challenge was is that she had developed a habit in the water that was contrary to good swimming. And I had to point it out to her. I had to videotape it. And I said, now we have to practice this on land, and we're going to practice it with water. I mean, with your breath first on land before we get in the water. So you understand, and we can It's called neuromuscular activation. We want to activate the nervous system in a certain way, in a certain pattern, in a way that's new to you. That's new to you. That's not how you learn. That's not how what you're doing, but we're going to do it now. And she got angry with me. She says, no, I'm not going to do that. And I said, okay, but you're not going to be able to swim this meet because you won't be able to get down the pool. It's because swimming requires technique more so than it requires just a fitness or toughness. She was tough enough and she was fit enough, but the technique wasn't there. And she would become out of breath before she could get to the other end of the pool. So she finally started to follow me. And lo and behold, after 2 months, she could not only swim down and back, she could swim 4 times the length of the pool comfortably. So much so, she says, well, I want to learn how to dive off the diving block now. I said, wait a minute here. Now that's a whole nother level. At 80 years old, I'm not sure we want to practice that, but I'll teach you how to dive from the pool deck, which you can do. So we go to the swim meet. It's the Masters U.S. National Swim Meet at the International Swimming Hall of Fame. There's 1,000 spectators. Swimmers and spectators. When they're not swimming, they're watching. And family are there. And she's in the 80 to 85-year-old group. 80 to 85-year-old. One of them has to be helped up and walked over to the pool deck, but she's a former swimmer, but developed some arthritis or whatever. And they start. It was the most electrifying moment that I had, watching her swim and the other 80 to 85-year-olds swim down the pool and back. The 80-year-old, the 85-year-old who was a former world-class swimmer, once she was in the water, you could not tell she had any neurological or neuromuscular issues. She was actually, I would have a hard time keeping up with her if I was swimming. And they got out of the water, the people were yelling. It was so inspirational. She was like like a little giddy, like a little girl. Her family came from around the world. They were all over, they were hugging her. It was amazing. And it was one of the highlights of my time. Yeah, it was one of the highlights of my time coaching at that point. Then I had more. That was one.
So it sounds like 3 of the elements that you use in your training are breath, and also movement, and also you talked a little bit about mindfulness too. How did you originally learn that these were things that could shift the brain and allow people to have resets and restorations, those elements?
Yes. So I actually had my first experience of training and practicing mindfulness prior to going into law enforcement. My father had given me a book about meditation. I started practicing. Because I was just curious. I wasn't like, at the time I wasn't into holistic health. You couldn't say that I, had any global knowledge about, mindfulness or yoga or practices. But the book introduced me to it. And I was curious. I was just curious. Well, what is this? And I trusted my dad to give me something and he had read it. So I was like, okay. And you could see the difference in him because he was a tough guy. And you could see he was calmer, more playful. I started, likable in a way that we got along better. So I took the book and I read it. And what I had been asked to go to work in law enforcement prior to taking the book and practicing mindfulness. Mm-hmm. And I said, no way, no way. Because I didn't think my body could take it. I didn't think, meaning the stress of it, it was too tough psychologically, emotionally, not physically, but psychologically, emotionally. I said, no, I don't want to be part of that and see all that. And I started practicing the mindfulness. And all of a sudden I was calmer. I had better attention span. I could dream. I could dream, and I had, I could goal set in a way that I couldn't goal set before and actually stick to it. And I took the exam for the police exam and passed it and continued practicing mindfulness. But of course, some things come and go, and, there's ups and downs, and I stopped practicing, and then I went back to practicing. And every time that I practiced, my performance at work, my social performance got better. And, when I was in the NYPD, I also had a time where I worked in the police academy. And I was one of the training groups for training police captains and above. There was a team of us that collected training material that inside law enforcement and outside law enforcement for executives. And one of the things I wanted to introduce is how to be mindful and meditating and be more relaxed. So we hired someone. At the time, I wasn't an instructor a mindfulness instructor. I was just a coordinator of this training program. And we hired somebody who came in, and they did a practice. And 3 of the executives, and these are tough 20-year plus veterans of law enforcement, fell asleep. And when they woke up, they said, wow, I haven't had that much peace. And they felt so relaxed. They said, will she come back again? And we brought her back again. And it happened again. And I was so inspired by what I saw that, this practice can be applied to people who never practiced before, accumulated all this stress, tough guys. Some of them were combat vets from Vietnam at the time. And they were able to employ it or use it right there and have an immediate result. So I continued practicing myself. But, as things happen. And, September 11th, 2001, triggered some of the PTSD that was already in me. And I had to go even deeper into practice. And when I came to Florida, I was still working through that. It wasn't done yet, because I came to Florida in 2003, and I was not done yet. My journey through that was not over yet. And so the mindfulness practices that I had learned, 20 years prior, before going into law enforcement, now were being enhanced by studying at the Hippocrates Health Institute, where these instructors came from around the world to show us how. And it was holistic health. So mindfulness was a part of it. It was also eating, and diet. And I was in the water, and I learned how to meditate in 49-degree water and stay still and be quiet for 10 minutes and not move at all. And I did not even feel the cold anymore. I didn't feel the cold. But the first time I touched that water, it was so cold I couldn't put my foot into my calf, because it almost hurt. It was like, wow, that hurts. It's so cold. That reaction was so cold. And over time of practicing this mindfulness and applying it to this particular healing modality that I wanted to experience, because I was a water person, but I had never been in water that cold or that long for healing, I was able to stay in for 10 minutes and not move, just my head above the water and breathing. And I didn't even know, I was aware of the cold, but I didn't feel cold. I didn't feel cold until I got distracted, and then I had to get back out. I lost my focus. I got back out. So that's the origins, and that's the continuation. It is a lifestyle and a practice. It's been interrupted for different reasons where I've lost it and not practiced to the degree I needed. And then here in Florida, what really brought me to the Center for Mind Body Medicine was the tragedy of the shooting at Parkland High School, Marjorie Stoneman Douglas High School in Parkland. And I was a former substitute teacher and a high school swimming coach. And I used to drive by the school all the time and ride my bike by the school. It was extremely traumatizing and triggering for me. And I knew enough that the level of practice I had done up to that point on my own wasn't enough. I needed more help. I was deeply triggered. And so were the people that I were working with. One who was, like I would say, I was working with combat vets and now even former police officers. And we were all triggered. And I said, we need to organize. We need to, find ways to support each other. The Center for Mind Body Medicine came to Broward County, Florida. It was a contract with Broward County Schools, supported by the Zuckerberg Foundation, supported by the Children's Services Council of Broward County. And they did a workshop. I found out about the workshop. I went, and they started talking about post-traumatic growth. They talked about resiliency and healing. They talked about using breath and movement and meditation and other modalities that they use. And I said, I want to do this. And they also talked about, you can now become one of our trainers if you stay in the process. And that's what happened for me. So while I was doing the training, there were things happening around me outside of the training where family members and other people were going through their own upsets and traumas. And I was able to, to apply what I was learning to my own life circumstances and to actually feel the post-traumatic growth and not be stuck. It was the first time I had heard the phrase, or first time I remember being impacted by the phrase, between stimulus and response, there is a space. And in that space is an opportunity to choose your response. And in that response lies your power and freedom. And I was so amazed by that it felt so true to me that I'm breathing and I have a space to choose relaxation or anxiety, to choose to continue practicing, to choose to go further, to choose to put down my guard and learn and be open to learning and put down my ego, not wanting to look silly or foolish. That was so beneficial to me. So the training that I had gone through prior, that was more just about healing myself. Now I was developing the skills to really employ it at a whole nother level, where it wasn't just about water and fear of water and fun in the water. It was about truly being a vehicle and the phrase that they also say with the training, to quote Gandhi, be the change you want to see in the world. And that's where I started to employ it at even a higher level. And I worked with at least one of the parents that lost children in Parkland at the shooting at the high school. I worked with some of the school counselors and teachers that were impacted. And we used breath, movement, and water. And in the process, I experienced my own healing journey, enhanced, deepening, expanded. I was just so grateful. Yeah. So yes.
So it sounds like a big piece of it is, when you were gave the quote that it allowed you to be more responsive than reactive. Like you took that moment so that you could respond to what was happening in the moment rather than just come out with the reactive response. And do you have some examples of either with yourself or others, where doing this kind of work and rewiring your brain allows you to actually get more competence in various skills and that type of thing?
Sure. Yeah. So for me in particular, and Viktor Frankl is the quote, I'm a competent swimmer. I've swam 3 miles in open water. I was a lifeguard. But for some reason, and this is common among swimmers, by the way, this is more common than people know, to go underwater to scuba dive is something I wanted to learn how to do. And I did try it once, and it had a little stressful moment around scuba diving, but I didn't think it was still in my body. And then I said, no, I'm going to go through the whole course. I'm going to do it again. And in me in particular, I kept bumping into the anxiety and the fear. And I would tell the instructor, go up, let's go up. I'm done. And we'd go up. And then he says, listen, just focus on your breath. And I said, I know that. I'm saying it to myself. I know that. And he says, yeah, but you're not breathing. He could tell by the bubbles that he would do this. This is a sign language underwater to breathe. And I wasn't breathing enough. And I go, I know that. Yes, I am. And then finally he says, trust the instructor. Trust this training will get you there. Trust the equipment, because we check the equipment. We're constantly looking at it. So I'm watching him now. We go back underwater and I'm watching him and he's doing this and I'm not resisting anymore. And the breath in and out, I could feel the tension in my body start to relax. I didn't even know I was that tense. And I'm just looking at him and he's doing this. He's doing this. And the further down, now we're going to 12 feet. We're heading down. We're heading down to 12 feet. And we get to the bottom. And the bottom feels like a fun place instead of a scary place, instead of a stressful place. And I'm like looking at him and my eyes are opening and you couldn't see me smile, but I'm smiling and I'm breathing. And even though I knew better, right? I knew I needed to breathe. I consciously, intellectually, I knew that, but I wasn't physically or, doing it or neuromuscularly doing it. So I was able to do that. And then when he did that for me, I was able to say to other people who wanted to learn and had the same fear I had, I said, let me help you. Let's breathe on land first. So I can introduce you. You go to the instructor. I'm not a scuba instructor, but I was able to create that, bridge the gap, that anxiety gap that would stop them. And I had people learn to scuba dive and become certified who were afraid. Swimming wasn't the issue, because when you're scuba diving, you have weight, you have a tank on you. It's heavy. On land, it's very heavy. You're carrying this weight and then, it's bringing you down. And there's something about that swimmers feel a lack of, let's say, control, right? Lack of control, lack of comfort about that experience. And they finally were able to relax and go down. And so some of the combat vets that I were working with, that was their journey. And we would start in shallow water. And I'm not a scuba instructor, but I can take them underwater to how to breathe and relax and then come up again. And in shallow water, go down, then come up, go down, come up. And they were able to do that. And then they loved going underwater. So the other thing that I was able to do, I work with Broward County school children. And some of them, this particular program I was working with, they transition out of foster care. So life circumstances, adverse childhood experiences are there for these kids. And they asked me to work with this particular group, and they were all boys between 14 and 17. And they could not calm down. The counselors, they brought me in to assist the counselors. And they couldn't calm them down. They were not paying attention. They had behavioral issues. We started to do some of the breathing exercises. I taught them how to do soft belly breathing, where they could actually watch their belly rise and watch it fall. And they were fascinated just watching their belly rise. Isn't that something? And we did some other things about some other exercises, some movement, some qigong, where we coordinated movement with breath and movement. And it was a water theme, by the way. So it was a water theme, like a wave. Breathe in, breathe out. So then I said, okay, young people, we're going to go on a 10-minute silent walk. I want you to notice your breath. I want you to notice everything and be totally mindful, be present. And we're at a park near the Intercoastal down here in Florida. You could see the water. There's some boats going by. It was a warm, beautiful day. It wasn't too hot, wasn't too cold. We're going to walk for 10 minutes and you're not going to speak. You're not going to touch each other. You're not going to look at each other. You're going to be totally in your own little world for 10 minutes. I'm going to set the timer. But prior we did that, we did some breathing to calm everyone down. And they were challenged. They were like, can I do it? They wanted to meet the challenge, right? They were actually like, wow, that's a challenge. Can I be quiet for 10 minutes? Not touch anyone? And I said, you want to notice the air, notice your breath, notice the water, notice how it feels to walk, how the sun on your skin. And the counselors were with us, and we started our walk. And I'm waiting and looking like, who am I going to have to, remind to be quiet? Who am I going to have to remind, separate, because now they want to play around and touch each other? They did not. The 10-minute chimes went off, and they said, Coach, can we keep going? And I was dumbfounded, because I didn't expect that immediate and substantial response that just calmly breathing and walking and being present would have. We go back to the classroom. This was a field trip. We have a bus. We go back to the classroom. We have some fun videos to watch about sports. And they start falling asleep. And I went, wait a minute. And I go to the counselor and I go, they're falling asleep. We got stuff to do. She says, you don't understand. We've never seen them behave this way. We've never seen them so relaxed and productive and cooperative. And some of them haven't slept for days. And I was, wow. So I knew the work, I knew what it could do, but I had never witnessed it do it that quickly. And for a group that I had never worked, and that was the first day, by the way, working with that group. That was my introduction. And then we were able to do it again and again. So that was one of the moments where breath, I could see the transformation. I could see the behavior. And, and also it was because they told me the feedback from the counselors that this is not normal. They've never seen anything like this. Yeah.
That must have been, first of all, that must have been incredibly satisfying. Like to actually watch it in action and to see like how quickly it can impact people. And the other thing I want to ask you is one of the things that you mentioned about scuba diving, and I think also probably about swimming, is that, people want to be in control. It's just part of how we are in life in terms of like stepping into the unknown, stepping into risks. And I think part of it's from an evolutionary basis of being safe and not being killed by whatever dinosaurs and stuff. Have you found that once people can let go of control to the degree where that they can do scuba diving and swimming, that they can actually bring that back into their lives and be willing to take more risks and kind of, take it into other areas of their life?
Yes. And I'm so happy you brought that up, because I absolutely have seen people talk about the impact of learning a new skill, scuba diving, learning to swim, even we do paddle boarding and surfing down here too, surf instruction, that now they felt more empowered to take on some other challenge or issue in their lives. Their families, like I said, one of the young ladies, she brought her family to the pool, and that was a challenge for her. It wasn't, there was some stressful dynamics within the family. We've had other people go and say, I'm going to make a job change. I'm going to make a career change. That they realized that what they were doing wasn't satisfying, and now they had the confidence and they had the internal messaging that said, I'd be happier doing something else. I've done that. Now I want to go on to get promoted and to seek out positions. And here in Florida, in order to be a police officer or a firefighter, you have to pass a swim test. So there are some people that desire that role, that employment, but they also fear it at the same time. There was a little nervousness, and it shows up in their trying to learn to swim. When we help them learn to swim, their enthusiasm about the work goes up. Their eagerness goes up. And then those who are already in law enforcement, it shifts how they feel about the work. So they become cynical, they become, and they're learning to swim and, getting in touch with their breath, having a calmer state inside that they know they can access. through breath, movement, and water, it translates into other activities that they do in their lives. Absolutely. More willing to travel. I got to tell you about me then, because I did develop a little bit of a phobia around flying. When I came to Florida, I did not fly much at all. I drove all the time. And I had to confront that because my work now was inviting me to fly. And I had to actually, practice what I preach, apply what I learned to that specific concern and journal about it, but breathe. It was actually a physical experience of becoming more calm before I even got on the airplane. And then becoming calm and noticing that I'm being a little anxious and becoming calm again on the airplane. And I had the experience for myself. Now, let's fly. Let's go. Where do you want to go? Let me go fly. So for years, I didn't fly at all. I stopped flying for a while. So I stayed very low. I could only go where I could drive, including Florida to New York, back and forth. Yeah, I would only go where I can drive. So that's actually, I don't think I've admitted that in public. So,
well, thanks for that story. You spoke a bit in one of your examples about neuromuscular activation and breath exercise. Can you just talk a couple minutes about that? Expand on that?
Sure. The breathing provides that opportunity and opening to develop new skills and new movement, actual performance. So swimming requires to move the body in a particular way that's not normal. It's not something you do every day, like walking or running or picking up or lifting or putting something down. It requires you learn something new. So one of the exercises I do to first connect people to their breath and movement, it's a neuromuscular activation drill. If I could demonstrate?
Sure.
Okay. So I ask people to put their hand up, and we're going to breathe as we move across the fingers, and we're just going to create a gap in between each finger one at a time. And at first, it's so awkward. They are so challenged by it. They don't know what are you talking about? And we go across the hands, but they're so focused, and they're sending a message to the muscles and through the nervous system to perform a certain task. They're modeling, or I'm modeling it, so it's being mirrored. There's an opportunity for mirroring to just mimic me, and they're breathing. So initially they can't do it, right? Their hands are doing this and doing that. So, and then eventually they go like this. Breathe in, breathe out. Breathe in, breathe out. Breathe in, breathe out. Breathe in, breathe out. Now we go across to the other side and come back. By the time we come back, most people are actually more competent just like that. They're so focused, and we go slow. It's a slow thing. And then we do it again. So some people who have never done it before in their lives have proof that they can activate a neuromuscular or a particular movement. And the breath is, I think, the key. Because if I tried this without the breath, they would be frustrated and because I've tried it. and they can actually walk through all 10 fingers and do something that the average person does not do, right? This is not a normal skill that you would do. So to activate that on land, prior to getting in the water, they have proof in their own body that they can learn a new skill and move in a certain way. And so we also apply specific skills to swimming on land and breath. So where they're reaching, inhale, exhale, we move with breath, and even breaststroke, inhale, exhale. And we do it on land first, and then we get in the water. And now we actually do some of these things. We're walking. So they're not challenged by their face being in the water and the timing of breath and movement, or they're supported by flotation. And the rate of learning and competence shoots up. They're so focused, even if initially they're resistant or they're incredulous, like, yeah, well, what are you doing? Why are we doing that? They're asking questions. You could tell sometimes it's quite often the questions are because they're nervous.
Yeah.
They're nervous. They're a little afraid. They don't want to and then when there's something clicks, they go, oh, I felt that. I feel a little calmer. Breathe. Oh, and then put it together. Let's put it together and put it in the water. And let's do it with your head up. So you're not challenged so you're breathing up here. And so we deconstruct some of the skills. And quite often, the skills that they were most challenged by is the one that they're most curious about when they have the achievement of getting it. The one that they don't like, I don't want to do that. Or when they, just stay with it and focus, and the breath allows that time. It gives them the space and the patience, even the patience. Yes, I got to add patience because some of them are impatient. Oh, why can't I get this? Can't get it. I want to do this now. Why can't I get it? Why am I? It gives them patience.
Yeah, thank you. I've heard you talk about a diving experience that you had in Jamaica that really had a big impact on you. Can you tell us about that?
Whoa, yes, please. Yes, please. I'm glad you asked because I love the story because it was so profound. So thank you for asking. So I was in Jamaica, and my girlfriend at the time, who was from Jamaica, was so excited to show me the island. It was my girlfriend at the time from Jamaica, lived here, was a swimmer like I am. We were water people. She was a competitive swimmer. I was a competitive swimmer. So that we had in common. But she was so excited, and in Jamaica, they drive on the other side of the road. And as she's driving and racing around Jamaica, she's also been in the US for 20 years, and her driving is making me nervous. So, and then she says, well, I know how to drive, but she wants to tell me about a story where there was an accident at that corner. And now I'm even more nervous. So I say to her, please, can I drive? Can I drive? She says, you don't know how to drive on the other side of the road. I had never done it before. I tried because I didn't want her driving, and I understood. She's so excited. She's just talking. She didn't she didn't know. I tried to drive on the highway. So I said, let me just drive on this open highway where there's not a lot of traffic. I kept looking for the rearview mirror this way. When you're on the other side, you got to look this way, whatever. It was turned around. I couldn't get it initially. I was flustered. I could not figure it out. I mean, I would notice I didn't do it, and then I would correct it. So we were safe. But once we got to the town we were going to Negril, I said, I can't. You take over. So she takes over. So in Negril, they have this called Rick's Cafe, where there's a cliff diving up to 90 feet. But those are the professionals. For the locals, I think it's 18, 20, 30, and 40. There's different levels. So I say, I want to do it. I'm so excited because I'm a swimmer. I used to springboard dive, but this height is that's high. So I want to do it. I want to do it. And I'm nervous. And it's like the audience is there. Rick's Cafe has plateaus or different heights where there's seating and there's music. It's like the wild world of sports because it looks like an event. This is where they hold the events. So I finally jump in, and I am so excited. But I'm nervous at the same time as I'm doing it. But I'm so excited. I got to do it again. And I do it again. I go higher. And I do it again, and I go higher. And I get out of the water. I'm so excited. And then we relax. We have some food. We get back to the car. My confidence is so high. I said, you know what? I want to drive again. I want to drive. Now, all the while before I jump into the water, I'm breathing. And I'm quiet initially. So once I am excited, I'm quiet. I'm focusing. And I'm listening to the instructor tell me, this is how you have to do it, at this height, because this, I used to dive, but this is a whole nother level at that height in that setting. And I'm listening and I'm focused and I'm breathing and I get in the water and something happened. It was a shift in my body that my confidence about driving was like up here. And the minute I started driving, you would have thought that I had driven like that all along. The problems of where the mirror was and how to look changed. I drove all the way back to Montego Bay, all the way. And I was calmer, and we were having light conversation, and we were more relaxed. But if I had not done the breathing before the jump, I don't think I would have done it, actually, because it was like high intensity, because so many people are watching, right? So that's the other part of that. So I had to do the breathing, and I'm breathing, and I'm looking, and I'm listening, and I'm watching other people go. And they tell you got to do it this way, at this height, and I'm watching, and I'm learning, and I could feel that I'm ready. I'm calming down, I'm excited, but not fearful, and I'm ready. And I had the same experience about driving. I was excited, but not fearful.
Right.
And the shift happened, a complete, change. I rewired that relationship to driving on the other side. Yes.
Thank you. That's amazing.
Yeah.
Just one last question for you. And this is like another story that I heard you talk about, and just a couple of details on that is at one point you were helping a distressed swimmer, and you saw some sea turtles or something, and it had a real impact. Can you just talk a moment about that?
Yes. So thank you for asking. We're off the coast of West Palm Beach. It's a clear, beautiful day. Visibility in the water is like 20 feet down. You could just see clear. There's a little surf at the shore, but this is a 1 mile swim. And I was there with some of my students to train them, just to have an experience of getting through the surf. They got through the surf. They said, thank you, that's enough. They went back. I go back out to swim again. As I'm swimming, because it's a mile swim, and they have lifeguards, but they're spread out, I see a distressed swimmer, and her head is up, she's flailing, and she's very fit, maybe 10 years my junior and more muscular than I am. And I just start talking to her, and that instantly she felt more. I stopped my swim to stay with her because she's ready to call for the lifeguard. And I said, listen, you obviously are strong enough and you have trained, but you're not breathing. You're holding your breath and you're not breathing. You're almost panicking. Mimic what I do. I'll stay with you, but I want to get you into a rhythm and a pattern. So we start swimming and we're looking at each other. I breathe to that side. So when she breathed, we're looking at each other. And I said, I want you to exhale. And so I stop again. I said, you're not exhaling. You're not breathing properly. You're still holding your breath and waiting to inhale, exhale up here. But the more relaxed thing to do is exhale, inhale. And so she starts to do that. And now we get into this zone, this flow, and she's looking at me. You can see a smile, and she looks different. She's more relaxed, more extended. Her body is performing in the way, instead of tight and compacted, she's more long and graceful. And we're just swimming along. And all of a sudden, I notice something coming underneath me to my right from the deep water, and I don't know what it is. And my eyes turn, I look, and it's massive sea turtles. And these things are big. They might be the size of a Volkswagen, especially when they're together. The two of them, they were massive. And they're coming my way super slow, but they're coming on a course with us like this. And we're going slow. We're not trying to swim. And they're going to overtake us, or at least pass under. And I'm wondering what's going to happen when she sees the turtle. And she looks at me, and she could tell that something, and she's quizzical. I could tell in her eyes, she's looking, and she sees the turtles and go, a smile. And like, that's awesome. She actually stopped and she looks at me, what? And we start swimming again, and the turtles are oblivious. They don't care. They're going under us so slow that if I put my foot down, I could touch them. And I already knew that the science of awe said that there's certain things that you can encounter that can cause you to feel this sensation that you're part of something that's greater than yourself, or you're in the awe of the majesty of something that is far beyond you, but still you're a part of it. But it just, the ocean, the night sky. And for me, that was a moment where I experienced awe with her at the same time. She finally got to the point, she says, I'm done. She finished her swim. I kept going because you can get out at different points. When we saw each other at the end, all we could talk about were the turtles.
Mhm.
We kept talking about it. And it's been a story that I tell over and over about the joy of being in that moment. And I would not have been there with her or I wouldn't have seen the turtles if I didn't stop, because I was a much faster swimmer than her. If I didn't stop to help her, I wouldn't have had the experience. So I had this awe-inspiring experience that just made it the joy of that moment lasted for at least a year. And I'm not exaggerating. At least a year. I was so excited and turned on and in the water and doing more open water and bringing people to the beach. And yeah, you got to come to the beach. And so that was my experience there. But breath, timing, and then the opportunity to have awe doesn't get any better.
Wow.
Yeah.
Oh, well, thank you so much, Thaddeus, for everything you shared with us today. And I really enjoyed this conversation. How can people find out more about you?
So thank you, Michael. And it's been great to be here. I'm a little excited and energized about this experience. So thank you for inviting me to have this experience. And I'm a faculty member with the Center for Mind Body Medicine. Their website is cmbm.org, cmbm.org. So that's one way of finding out about more of the work that we do, but also locally, the work that I do here in Florida, Diversity in Aquatics, diversityinaquatics.org, as well as it's the initials, the Diversity in Aquatics Swim. So it's diaswim.com, diaswim.com. So those are the two ways to find out on the mindfulness side, and then on where we combine it with the water, the Diversity in Aquatics, and we do the blue mindfulness training and helping fearful adults, conquer their fear of the water or move through their fear with breath and movement and water.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Okay, and again, thank you so much for this. It's really, really been fun.
Yes, it has. Thank you. I appreciate it. I truly do.